It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across the USA, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Thank you so much for being here. Man, a ton of different stories out there. This out yesterday from Axios, from a book that will be coming out in March. Alex Eisenstadt wrote it. He's national political director for, this is interesting, for Politico.
Yeah, right.
But the book, Revenge, the inside story of Trump's return to power, it's not about the actual campaign. It's about Iran's threat to assassinate Donald Trump during the 2024 campaign was far more serious and publicly known and led to extraordinary precautions by his team that included using a decoy plane to avert a feared attempt on his life. Wow. Iran is still on Trump's mind. Last week, he said he's given his team instructions to obliterate Iran if its operatives were to kill him. He later tempered that remark by saying he wanted a verified nuclear peace agreement with Iran, which has targeted Trump since 2020, when as president, he ordered an airstrike that killed Soleimani, a top Iranian military leader. Wow. Law enforcement officials warned Trump. These are just the highlights from the book, the talking points. Mm-hmm. Law enforcement officials warned Trump last year that Iran had placed operatives in the United States with access to surface-to-air missiles. I'll say that again. Law enforcement officials warned Trump last year that Iran had placed operatives in the U.S. with access to surface-to-air missiles. Trump's team worried that the Iranians could try to take down his easily recognizable personal jet, better known as Trump Force One, as it was taking off or landing. Concern intensified after a foiled assassination attempt on Trump at his golf course in West Palm Beach on September 15th. Iran has not been linked to that incident or the shooting in Pennsylvania, but at one point, soon after the Florida incident, Trump's security detail was so concerned about the Iran threat that it had Trump travel to an event on a decoy plane owned by Steve Witkoff, who is his Middle East envoy.
Yeah. Right.
He's a Trump friend and real estate executive, now the envoy to the Middle East. Wow.
Yeah, so Susie Wiles and Trump traveled on that plane, the decoy plane, and Trump staffers traveled on the Trump plane. And they were all, some of them kind of tongue-in-cheek, were saying, well, wait a minute. If the plane's going to be targeted, we're going to be in the plane. But that was the setup at that time. I don't know how long that decoy plane setup, Alex wasn't clear on that. I guess I'd have to read the book to learn more. But that decoy setup definitely happened for the short term after that Florida incident.
Wow. Secret Service also organized a decoy motorcade that day, with Trump in one and staffers in another.
Right.
The Secret Service warned campaign leaders after a September 18th rally on Long Island that they had intelligence that someone might be looking to shoot up his motorcade. Do not blankety-blank hang out the window and take photos because you're a blankety-blank target, one staffer told Trump. Joke to Trump social media guru Dan Scavino, Wiles reclined her seat back.
Mm-hmm.
During a trip to Pennsylvania the next week, Secret Service agents noticed a drone following Trump's motorcade. Officers in one of the cars opened up the moonroof and shot it with an electromagnetic gun, disabling it.
Mm-hmm.
Campaign insiders told me Trump was more worried about the Iran threat than he publicly let on. Said Trump had boasted at rallies about killing of Soleimani, but as the Iranian threat intensified, staffers noticed he talked about it less, and privately he began expressing more concern about the staging of his events. He also worried, this is interesting, he also worried voters would get assassination fatigue. Would Americans, he wondered, want to go through 4 years of their president being under threat?
Interesting.
Well, we saw how for the left it became sort of not a big deal.
Right. Right. Well, remember by the time we got to the convention, the Republican convention, and he had the bandage on his ear. Oh, he's just keeping the bandage on his ear.
Yeah.
For show. So.
But when we talk about illegal immigration and we talk about visa overstays and things like that, let me read it one more time.
Mm-hmm.
Law enforcement officials warned Trump last year that Iran had placed operatives in the United States with access to surface-to-air missiles. Do I need to go any further?
Nope. Nope. Nope.
Wow.
And there was the one individual that was arrested and told authorities he had been hired by Iran, and he had access to a lot of money. No shock that they anybody could guess, if you've been following recent history, that Iran wanted they wanted revenge based on the killing of Soleimani. But they also see Trump as a threat in many other ways. They know he's going to be strong when it comes to foreign relations, and that doesn't favor them. Bibi Bibi talked about it fairly openly and casually the other day at the joint press conference. Said, they've tried to kill me multiple times, tried to kill you multiple times, talking about Iran. And didn't really get into the weeds on it. This, this book here by Alex Eisenstadt, you had said Politico. He's now actually at Axios and was at Politico for years covering Trump. So this is not, he's working for these liberal publications. This isn't coming from Fox News or anything else. And he spells out here, and what we've learned so far from the book about the real threat that was very present in 2024.
And you go back to Axios. I went back to Axios September 25th of last year. Trump briefed on threats from Iran to assassinate him, his campaign says.
Right. That was after they had obtained, I believe that was after they had obtained and arrested the guy that had been paid by Iran. I don't think he was an Iranian national, but he said he was paid by Iran.
Well, when you get, because I'd want to know, what is the intelligence? You say you believe there are Iranians with access to surface-to-air missiles.
Right.
Who are these Iranians, and how do you know they have access to surface-to-air missiles?
Right.
And where are these surface-to-air missiles? I would think that if there were Iranians in the United States, there would be a massive manhunt going on. Is this just something that they, at that point, had only picked up on intelligence from listening to overseas phone calls?
Right. Was there any kind of trail of evidence or anything there?
Was it just that you knew through a phone call that someone was here somewhere with something because you heard it on a phone call, or is there more evidence than that?
Right.
Because that's an awful long time, September until now, February, and these people are still out there
Right.
with surface-to-air missiles? Is it still very weak intelligence, and were you going with that? Or was it stronger? It seemed by the reaction of the campaign that, and by what Axios writes, that they were extremely concerned about it.
Yeah.
Because you and I know that you can have other countries that make, international phone calls to each other just to throw out BS to think the U.S., to hopefully get the U.S. to think they're going in one direction when they're actually not.
Sure.
Or make them prepare for one thing when they plan on doing something else.
Diversion,
right.
And
right.
those, that does happen. Also, it wouldn't be completely unusual for them to put stories out there, plant fake intel out there in an effort just to create the fear without there being much evidence. You mentioned.
Well, to create the fear and then have the story come back to the Middle East that creates fear and respect while Iran is trying to go after Trump.
Right.
Whoa.
That's the ultimate goal of creating the fear and terrorizing is that, look, they're afraid of you.
Helps you build recruitment.
Yes. In a time when there was a lot going on between, with everything with Israel, but all of Iran's proxies were in full effect.
And knowing that Trump was going to come in, as he did, I believe it was late last week, and say, all right, sorry, oil money's gone. Sanctions are back on again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, assassinating a U.S. president in order to ensure that the flow of $100 billion over a period of, a year or so continues to flow in.
Mm-hmm.
Then again, if you did it, before the election, well, then you don't know, the Democrat might win. You don't know. But the fact is, if they could tie it in, who knows what I don't know what Democrats would do. I know if they went after Trump now, there'd be hell to pay for the Iranians.
Oh yeah,
I think
the sitting president.
I think the
much
reaction
different.
Yeah, I think the reaction
scenario.
you got from Iran. Let me just see here. What was it here? Trying to find it. Okay, I don't have her at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
But Iran would view that news gets back because I went, when I saw the first story, then I started looking. Okay, who's got this? Who has this story today? Axios, Al Jazeera, Jerusalem Post, Daily Wire, Breaking Down the News. Let me see. Axios. You don't have the mainstream media on this.
Yeah, not yet.
No,
I mean, it is an
not.
Axios reporter that is
Right.
writing the book, or
And-
wrote the book.
Right, and the story came out. I don't know what time it came out yesterday, but let me see. Axios 10 hours ago.
Daily Beast has it.
Jerusalem 15 hours ago. Al Jazeera 18 hours ago. So it was yesterday it came out.
Right.
And the book's not going to be released, though, till March.
Right.
So, yeah, wow. Well, if you wonder why the president said what he said last week about Israel and showed unwavering support to Israel, because that's what we got out of it completely, you can understand.
Yep.
He knows who the enemy is, and the enemy is not Israel.
No, it is not.
866-90 Red Eye.
This morning's USDA Farm Report is brought to you by Howes Products. Tested, trusted, guaranteed since 1920.
The initial look at farm income forecast for 2025 per USDA reveals
net farm income, we are forecasting that it will increase in calendar year 2025 relative to 2024.
Yet economist Carrie Litkowski notes this distinction.
What is expected to drive most of the forecast increase in net farm income in 2025 are direct government payments to farmers.
A forecasted $33 billion increase from the previous year. In terms of forecasted cash receipts for sale of commodities, a 0.3% decrease is expected from 2024. Total crop receipts are forecasted to be over 2% lower than the previous year. Also expected to be less in 2025.
Total expenses are going to decline slightly, about 1% or $2.5 billion in 2025.
I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
This report brought to you by Cenex Fuels and Lubes.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. This story, wow. James Carville suggested there could be a plant inside progressive Democratic politics during a podcast on Thursday.
The only plant is weed, James. Put the bong down.
The political consultant read a description of former DNC chair Jamie Harrison's announcement during the elections that they must be gender balanced. Harris said during the election process, our rules specify that when we have a non-binary candidate or officer, the non-binary individual is counted as neither male nor female, and the remaining 6 offices must be gender balanced with the results of the previous 4 elections. Carville sounded the alarm about the statement during the podcast and said it was the level of blankety blank that the party has embraced. And it's like there's a plant in quotes progressive unquote America just to seize how many blankety blank stupid things they can embrace. It's stunningly stupid. Wow. Carville also pushed back against the push by Democrats for pet bereavement leave during the discussion. I mean, come on. I mean, please, just think of how, and fortunately, no one's got overly publicized on this, although the right to use it in some places, just how clueless you sound to some people. It's like, you're living on a different thing. Life and death on a farm is something that happens every 6 hours.
That's a true story.
Wow. Well, so there you go.
Yeah.
And he calls Kamala their 7th string quarterback. Look, you're the one that was bragging that she was going to kick Trump's butt on Election Day.
Right.
We remember.
Right.
You were the one who embraced identity politics fully. You thought it was winning until it wasn't.
You told us she was going to win. If I'm a liberal rank and file, I'm like, why did you lie to us? Why did you lie to us? Well, we all know the truth. She wasn't going to win.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. All right, you ready for this from the New York Post?
All right.
I don't know if you're ready for this one.
I don't know.
Liberals are taking Trump Derangement Syndrome to a whole new level, according to one doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Some patients are reacting to President Trump's first week in office with reports of depression, anxiety, insomnia, chest pains, panic, and fear, said Jackson Hole Dr. Glenn Burnett, who compared the response to how America coped with the September 11th, 2001 terrorist attacks. It's been extremely intense. The week or two after the election was pretty intense, and then it calmed down, and now it's back up, Burnett told Mark Halperin on his podcast. We're dealing with depression, anxiety, all kinds of medical problems that are related to that, the insomnia, chest pain, chest pressure, and then there's some genuine fear and panic. He said patients are experiencing very, very severe anxieties about what is going to happen to them, and it's affecting their lives. Trump 2.0 and his team have come in like gangbusters, following through on what he said he would, ramping up deportations of illegal immigrants, imposing numerous executive orders, eliminating progressive favorites such as DEI programs and transgender benefits, while putting a buzzsaw to federal agencies. Trump himself has referred to irrational critics as suffering from Trump Derangement Syndrome. Now it has, again, as viruses do, now it has evolved into EDS, as we know from TDS.
Mm-hmm.
Elon.
Mm-hmm.
I was a physician during 9/11, and it was like this then, but it was everybody. This is just about as intense, but it's not everybody, and people are having a real crisis, said Burnett, whose patients include everyone from cowboys to ranchers to billionaires. Halperin asked if patients admit that their depression and anxiety is caused by the return of President Trump, saying his prior concerns that millions of Americans would figuratively lose their minds would come to fruition. I think it has a lot to do with Donald Trump and the fear of what he's going to do or what's happening to the country, the doctor said. What's really a shame, Burnett said, is that the election has severed family ties with pro and anti-Trumpers actually disowning each other. I've been a physician for 30 years. I've never seen this happen before. I mean, to this level where people just completely disinvite their families, and that there's this huge breach in normal family dynamics, Burnett said.
Well, it's a learned behavior. It is also unfounded if you have a fear of somebody becoming president and then, eventually being sworn in. What would the fear be, and who would be responsible for the fear? Who builds that fear in the minds of people?
Oh, yeah, I would agree completely. And that wasn't asked in the article.
Right. How did multiple individuals, according to this doctor, all come up with the same thing? Well, again, it's a learned behavior, which means someone put that into their minds and they believed it.
Right.
So who was doing the fear-mongering there?
Well, it's like when I looked at, I was looking at some stuff from Elizabeth Warren, and I went to it where she out and outright lied.
Yeah.
And I don't know what social media it was on. I don't remember there being any community notes, but it was basically, she said, that Elon Musk is in charge and Trump isn't. It's like, there's no basis for that at all.
No.
she outright lied. And not one of her followers, everyone was in agreement with her. Nobody said, wait a minute. And you know that if a conservative put that out, they would be challenged.
Oh, yeah.
On the truth.
Yeah.
Not one person, and there were hundreds that I saw that agreed with her, said, well, it might be happening, but there is no evidence.
Right.
Obviously, the president, is the one that appointed him. Now, if your thing is that the president may have gone too far, what is your argument for that?
Mm-hmm.
But her argument was not about Trump. Her argument was that Elon Musk, and just, livid, pure panic, Elon Musk was an unelected person who was making personnel decisions and looking at private data, and he had no right to do so.
Right.
Well, you and I know that's wrong.
Right.
As we said on Friday's show, and I happened to see the video, and it was the podcast, and it was Jason Alexander. Yes, George Costanza's podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And it said on it, our guest today, Jeff Skunk Baxter, who is the great guitarist, was with Steely Dan, the Doobie Brothers, session player, and he is one of the world's premier people when it comes to missile and weapon systems all around the world.
Mm-hmm.
He is a consultant to the Pentagon. Jeff Skunk Baxter is one of the top military consultants on the planet Earth.
Yeah.
Now, if you don't know who he is, go to Google, Jeff Skunk Baxter, and the first thing you'll notice is his mustache.
Yes.
But
the mustache has a higher clearance than he does.
And it was actually a wonderful interview. Wonderful interview.
Mm-hmm. Very smart guy.
Extremely smart guy, because I was shocked. I figured they asked him about Steely Dan, and it was Jason Alexander. All right, what's the situation with Russia and Putin?
Right. Yeah.
And he went through, basically dissed Russia, saying they don't really have a lot.
Right.
They really don't have a lot, and a lot of stuff they're getting is from North Korea, he was saying. But he went through. It was great. And so stop this thing. Well, we have private citizens. Jeff Skunk Baxter has security clearance with the Pentagon.
Yeah. Yeah.
The guy in the band called the Doobie Brothers, based on Doobies, the marijuana reference.
Right.
I mean, it's like people pretend like, oh, this just is happening the first time. And then I went the other day and I looked at the number of private consultants, private people, private companies, consulting agencies that consult every level of government, including the Pentagon, and have access to private information and everything else. And the Democrats make it seem as if this is the first time anything like this has ever happened before.
Well,
we have consultants, and you want this guy to get in and give you ideas of what to do to cut the budget, and you're going to listen to him?
The government's contract with SpaceX is actually classified.
Yeah.
So, again, it's the fear-mongering that's happening right now that's coming from the left. They have to do this because they have nothing else.
Well, but they have no interest in searching for the truth.
Right.
And you and I talk about the billionaire, we had played his audio, Mark Pincus, who was completely reversed. He voted for Trump, and he was as loyal of a liberal as you can get. And just like Michael Rappaport, the actor, who's furious at the left, you can see, you can feel their anger. They were scared to death of Trump.
Right. Yeah.
And then they realized, well, we've been partially brainwashed. We didn't go out and do our own homework. We didn't find out if Trump actually said those things. And then we went out and found out he didn't do those things. Russia collusion never happened. Think about this. If you think how many Democrats believed what Adam Schiff and the Democrats were selling, that the intelligence showed. Remember, Adam Schiff lied.
Mm-hmm.
Senator Schiff in California was elected by the people of California to represent them. He lied about what the top secret intelligence said about Trump.
Right.
He lied.
Yep.
Out and outright lied to the American people on it, which is why he lost, why he was booted off the committee.
Right.
They booted him off it. We can't trust you.
Right.
You lied about what the intelligence said to the American people. And the intelligence, there was no intelligence that Trump had colluded with the Russians to do anything. There was none. Zero. And he was out there for years promoting that. But when they all found out, my God, it was a Hillary Clinton. And you see more of the podcasters. I forgot the podcaster the other day that went, yeah, it blew my mind. We saw Trump was a traitor, and then I found out it was all done by Hillary.
Mm-hmm.
Hillary did the whole thing, the DNC. They set him up. He didn't do it. And when they find out, they're furious that they were so willing to be brainwashed and never had any type of curiosity to find out what the actual truth is.
Well, and we asked back then, I mean, we've asked on a number of fronts, but with Charlottesville and a number of things that have happened regarding Trump, if, or anything politically, if you expect to win the debate or be right in any conversation, wouldn't you want to read everything you could about it?
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't you want to find out
Yes.
the truth? Instead of believing what was said? And because the point is, the opposition is claiming something, you know they're doing that, then you take whatever their claim is and you follow up on that. To debunk their claim, whatever their debate is, whatever their position is, you want to debunk that position.
And, you know, it's interesting. They're doing this. I mean, this is something that I think is really a positive for the Trump administration. Their rapid response 47. And they're playing. You go through yesterday, they were playing the Democrats on the Sunday morning news shows, making accusations that what Trump is doing is the most serious constitutional crisis the country has ever faced since Watergate. And they simply put in there, they go, deranged, for example, deranged Chris Murphy thinks cutting off taxpayer funding for sex changes in Guatemala is the most serious constitutional crisis the country has faced since, certainly since Watergate. Now, he didn't say that specifically, but he said it's the most serious constitutional crisis, and they throw in one of the biggest things that they're doing to cut, one of the most outrageous things. So they're not afraid, though, to put on their own page what Democrats are saying because they believe they can win every argument.
Right. Yep. There hasn't been any of that at all from this administration. If you think about everybody Trump has surrounded himself with, J.D. Vance, but everybody that's out there, none of them. Part of the great thing about watching the confirmation hearings was that they weren't going to sit there and, blah, 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 blah. No.
They attacked.
They attacked. And in their opening statements, they laid out, all right, here's the landscape. Here's what they're going to try to do to me today. Here's what you're going to hear. Here's why it's bogus. And that's what you have to do. That is their reality right now. You can't change it. But more and more, again, the left is just shrinking into this smaller corner of the room of crying babies.
866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Some of the best things I read over the weekend was the one story about how Trump responded to a reporter who asked him about Prince Harry. Prince Harry apparently, he took drugs in the past and whatever. And if he did, there's a fight over whether he should have a visa here to the United States. He wouldn't be allowed to get a visa if he had done drugs and things like that.
Yeah.
And Trump's response, I won't deport Harry. He's got enough problems with Meghan. Oh, my God. That's the best.
But isn't that what everybody's thinking?
Yes,
Like,
exactly.
is he really the problem? We don't think he's the problem. Harry's problem is Meghan.
That's his problem.
Yeah. Yeah,
We can't kick her out. She's
Right.
American.
Yeah, exactly.
Can we?
Yeah, he might do an executive order just for her.
Trump did that executive order. It was blatantly unconstitutional, and nobody cared.
Nobody cared. Not one protest, even from the left.
And then I go to Drudge Report. Philadelphia 40, Kansas City 22. Worst Super Bowl in history. Trump walks out.
All right. That's fine.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.